Mr. Hanna, it is 6:59. We are recording and we're live on YouTube.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Hanna, Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeal. We'll hold our meeting, web-based meeting, hosted in Zoom, March 10, 2022. What's going on here?
I don't know. We're getting some feedback. So if this is not your application, would you kindly mute yours?
Okay, we can start now.
We'll see if that fixes it. Thank you.
Okay. We take the roll call. Mr. Sibbett.
Here.
Juan Rivas.
Present.
Mr. DeLucia.
Present.
Mr. Moore.
Present.
Okay, this is the Zoning Board of Appeal. The City of Danbury will hold our regular meeting on Thursday, March 10, 2022 at 7 p.m. in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to hear the following application: 2203, 2204, 2205, 2206. Can I have a motion to open the hearing?
I make a motion that we hear applications 22-03, 22-04, 22-05, and 22-06.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We have a motion to open, to hear 2203. Anybody represent the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and the board, for the record, Neil Marcus, Cohen & Wolf PC at 158 Deer Hill Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, who is Lori Stolowitz. And Lori is also present on the screen this evening. The application is to allow for some renovations to a house that has existed since the early 1950s in Lake Wabika. And actually, the house was Lori's mother's house, and the house that she grew up in Lake Wabika. The property is located in the RA20 zone. And like all of Lake Wabika, the property is a pre-existing non-conformity, which is to say that the size of the lot is half of what is required in the zone. It's basically a 9,378 foot square foot property. And it was built at a time when the setbacks and side yards that we use today for the RA20 zone didn't apply at all. So hopefully you have a copy of the map that was done by Gail Adams.
Yeah.
It shows, it's a map entitled Beverly A. Klein, which of course is Lori's mother. And it shows the house on the north side of Jeffrey Street. And it's basically a corner on a curve in the road, at a corner. And if you'll take a look at the site plan, you'll see that the existing house is,
Mr. Marcus, can we have the plan on the screen?
I unfortunately don't have that capability.
Maybe Mary
I
can-
could, I think I may have it here, but I need to permission, Mary.
Oh, yes.
Rod, that would be terrific if you could do that. If I were in my office and not in my home, I'd be better off, but here I can't quite do that.
Okay,
Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, how's that?
It's perfect.
that's better now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what you see, there are numbers on there in circles, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And basically, those are the variances that we're talking about. Actually, that's the renovation areas. And a couple of them require the variances that we have applied for. But if you ignore for a second the 1, 2, 3, and 4, the crosshatched area, you'll see that the existing house and deck are located very close to the side yard on the westerly side of the property, basically about a foot, 1.6 feet, foot and a half off of the side yard. And in the front, it's roughly just about 20 feet back from the corner of the house in the southwesterly corner to the lot line on the road. And again, if you, excuse me, that's about, let me take that back. That is about 15.9 feet. It's inside the crosshatch section 4. And the other setback is at about 18 feet in the front of the house, the closest point to the road. So you've got a non-conforming front yard, a non-conforming side yard. And if you go to the easterly corner, the existing side yard is 16.1 feet from the corner of the house to the easterly boundary line. So all 3 yard measurements are pre-existing non-conforming. In the rear of the property, there's plenty of room between the deck at the back of the house and the rear property line, which is shown as property of the Lake Wabeeka Association. And if you look all the way to the northerly part of the plan, if that were down a little bit further on the screen, you would see that the actual shore of Lake Wabeeka is right behind the house. Thank you, Rob. So basically, the rear of the property doesn't necessitate any variance. So what we've asked, the variance is, we want to reduce the side yard setback from 6 feet to 3 feet on the easterly side of the property to allow for the proposed detached carport. So basically, that is number 2. Number 2 is merely a carport. So the idea is that you could pull in the existing driveway, which is in the southeast corner of the lot, and rather than park the car in the pad right on the road, you could proceed into the carport in the back. And that would require us to reduce, to have a variance to 1.6 feet on the, excuse me, to 3 feet on that easterly side. And that's sketched in on the map. And there's a note there by the surveyor, by Gail Adams, that the actual stone wall is a variable line. It's not exactly straight, but she has measured it from the stone wall closest to the corner of the proposed carport. The second variance that we're talking about is to reduce the side yard setback from the 6 feet that are required to 1.6 feet on the on the westerly side. And to do that, and to 2.5 feet. So the westerly property line, we're asking for 2 variances. It's 1.6 because the construction in area number 1 will involve a roof overhang, which is the dashed line that is along the northerly side of the house. And that dashed line will be 1.6 feet from the side yard. The actual house itself is not changing. There's no change in the footprint of the house. But because they're working on a new second story to the house, they'll add a new roof overhang, and the roof overhang will be 1.6 feet from the side yard. The second, which by the way, is not any closer than the existing foundation. It's just that we are going out over the back of the house, and therefore the new construction, which is the overhang, would require the variance to match the corner of the house. So we're not changing the footprint at all. And then as you move towards Jeffrey Street, we've asked that a second carport be constructed in number 4. And that again allows for the 2 cars to be parked under a carport as opposed to sitting in the exact same space on the street. And to do that, the carport will be 2.5 feet from the westerly side yard. And that's, again, a new point, because though it's 1.6 in the back of the house, it is going to be closer now to 2.5 in the front of the house. And the next variance would be reduce the front yard setback from 30 feet, which is a requirement, to 15.9 feet. Excuse me, from the requirement of 30 feet, it's currently 15.9 feet, so it's non-conforming. And we want to do that to 2 feet for this detached garage, the carport, not the garage. So the garage building requires 2 variances. The back of the garage carport is 2.5 feet from the side yard, and the front of the carport is 2 feet off of the road. So essentially, it's to cover a parking space, which would exist otherwise. The parking space doesn't require the variance, but the carport does. And then the last item is to reduce the side yard setback from 15 feet, which is required, to 14.5 feet on the east side. You can see, if you look at crosshatched area number 3, the number 14.5 is the variance that we seek, and that's just for a porch. And that porch is a half a foot too close to the side yard. And the reason for that is if you see that there's a jog in the foundation of the house, the architect has lined the porch up on the existing jog. So we're using the existing foundation, but when you put the porch in front, it ends up being a half a foot too close to the side yard. That's the easterly side. And then in the front of the house, we are ending up at 18 feet to the porch, which is approximately a foot closer than the house is today. So the porch, if you see that jog where the porch fits into the front of the house where the concrete pad exists today, that corner is approximately 19 feet, 18 and a half, 19 feet, and the porch will be 18 feet. So again, 30 foot is a requirement. It's never been at 30 feet. And we're trying to just match up to the existing foundation. So it sounds like we're asking for a lot. In reality, we're asking for a number of very small changes. And all of that is as a result of the fact that the lot is non-conforming and the house has been non-conforming since the day it was built. And what they'd like to do is to basically line up the new construction with the existing foundation. And we gave you a statement of hardship, which again states formally the items that I've already raised. The size of the property is 9,378 square feet, 20,000 is required. The house was constructed in 1952. Originally, it was a summer cottage. Over the years, it's been updated and expanded for year-round use, which it is today. The applicant wants to make improvements, which includes adding a second story on the existing foundation in the rear. And that's number one on the map that we're looking at. And adding the 2 carports to park the cars on the same site where they're parked now, but undercover, and to adding a new porch entry, which is item number 3. So that's what we're doing. The hardship, of course, emanates from the unique physical characteristics of the lot itself. It's relatively long and very narrow. And it is also a hardship as a result of an upzoning of the property since its original construction in 1952. So it's irregular and it has been upzoned. And for that reason, we're seeking the variances. We have shared this plan with the neighbors on each side and with the association in the rear. And to the best of our knowledge, we have no objection. And actually, we have support from a couple of neighbors on the 2 sides of the property. If you've been through Lake Wabika, again, from an historical perspective, I remember in the early 1950s when this community was first built. As I told my client, I knew her father well, and he was one of the original firemen who came out of the city of New York to build Lake Wabika back in the early 50s. But in those days, you had little cottages. Today, you have a really fine residential community. Nothing today looks like what existed back when the property was originally designed. And as a result, over the years, I've been in front of this commission with a number of variances in Lake Wabika, and I've seen a lot of variances requested where I have not been involved. But all of this reflects the fact that this community is now a year-round residential community. It's actually much more upscale than it ever was when it started. And to do that, because of all these irregularities, there have been a lot of these really what I'll call small variances. So you can't renovate a house up Lake Wabika and ask for 1 variance, because the house will always require 3 or 4 different variances just by the virtue of the fact that they're also non-conforming. And that's where we are. We're non-conforming, and we think that the improvements that we're going to make are definitely in harmony with the neighborhood, in that it will improve the property values in the neighborhood by upgrading the value of this house as well. So that's our proposal. I would be happy to answer any questions or ask Lori to answer any questions because she's much more familiar with this property than I am. So the applicant will rest on that presentation.
I had a question, Mr. Marcus. If I went there, I looked today, and it seems to be the frame for the carport on the right-hand side of the house, which the east side is there. And the land behind that is pretty flat there. Why you cannot expand your parking to the back? Instead of make in front the house to carport.
The car, which Joe,
The east side, where you,
2 or 4?
Oops, oops.
I think it's number 2, behind number 2, if you keep going backward to back the house, pretty good land over there.
Yeah, number 2 on the map there is a carport frame that's on the driveway or behind the driveway.
That's correct. Yeah, 2 is a carport that's behind the existing driveway. You'd pull straight into it. Number 4 is basically they're going to take out that concrete pad that will come out. That's like a deck, and they're not going to use that to park on. They'd like to pull off the road and go to the left into a car space. There's not a lot of room to put 2 carports on the easterly side of the house. I mean, basically, you've only got 16 feet, and then if you were to try to come in there and put both carports on that side, all you would be doing is increasing the length of the variance along the property of Van Eggers in Pearl. And quite honestly, we don't think that's fair to them because the view for these houses is out to the lake. And the last thing I want to do is to affect the neighbor's view of Lake Wabika. That it's a lake community. And so
my question is, if you push number 2 more backward, you have another one next to it right there between the house and number 2, because you got a lot of room there.
That's correct. I can't disagree with you, Joe, but it would negatively impact our neighbors. I wouldn't do it to them. I wouldn't do it to Pearl and Van Eggers because they're looking out towards the lake. I don't think it would be fair to them because the beauty of this property, of these properties on the lake, is the lake view. Quite honestly, the road view means nothing. These houses are all way too close to the road to be worried about your streetscape. I mean, you could put some shrubs and plants up there, but I wouldn't want to do that. That's why we didn't. We just didn't think it was fair to the neighbors.
I mean, I have a few questions that I've written down. I was there at the property. I had questions before visiting the property and then afterwards. Some of the questions that I do have is, what are the size of the carports? Are they single carports, multiple vehicle carports? And what is the size of the porch being proposed or for construction?
Okay, I thought we gave you the actual house plans as part of the filing, but I'm going to take a look and give you the answer there. Get a ruler out, and I will tell you real quickly.
I can give you the dimensions. Would you like
Lori,
me to?
you'll do that while I'm measuring the
Please. If you
Sure,
could.
the ports are intended to be 10 foot 6 inches wide and 21.5 inches long. They're each single carports.
Let me correct you. You're saying 10 foot by 20 feet.
10.5 feet wide and 21.5 feet long.
Yes, okay. It's a single. And the front porch, scaling a 1/4 inch is a foot.
Oh, the front porch. Mm,
4 feet, inch. The porch, the new porch along the front is about 5 feet on the front side and about about 3 feet, 3 by 5. Is that what that porch is?
I think it's slightly bigger. I don't have the exact dimensions. I think it's maybe about 8 feet long, that stretch, and about, I think about 5 feet deep.
I'll
I
agree to
think
that.
what that porch would wind up being.
Yeah.
You know, it's just clearing out that area.
I'm scaling off of a photostated copy of the plans in that it's not quite as accurate, but I'll go with, if that's your memory, I would say that it scales relatively close to that. So that's the size of the porch. Juan, does that answer your questions?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, if you guys don't have exact measurements, I'll just go off of what you guys are telling me right now. That's all I can do.
Yeah. They're pretty
I
close.
think it's pretty close.
All right. Some of the other questions I had was, like Commissioner John Hanna said, port number 2 here on the site plan. It looked like when I visited the property that frame was already to the rear of the driveway. Is the plan to leave it there, to bring that carport back to the driveway where it's over the driveway, or do you plan to extend the driveway to where that carport is currently?
Right. We plan to take down the thing that's there and extend the driveway back farther to this carport that'll be a more permanent structure than what's there, those poles. So this is pushing it back, so we don't need the front setback variance. We don't need that because we're pushing it far back. So we don't need a variance for that.
There's a tree to the east of that porch. Is that tree planned to be removed, or is it planned to stay where it's currently at? Because it looks like that might affect the proposed construction that you have there.
Yeah, we haven't addressed that yet.
Okay. That's all I have for now. I might have some further questions as we move along. But
Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, I do. Knowing Lake Wabeeka, as Mr. Marcus adequately pointed out again, are fraught with non-conforming lots. It's just the way it is. So 1, 2, and 3, I don't have a whole lot of problem with. But I don't need to read chapter and verse to you, Neil, but one of the conditions for a variance when it comes to the hardships is it needs to be the minimum variance necessary in order to allow reasonable use of the property. And to my mind, I don't think number 4 necessarily is the least use that we are charged with doing if we do variances. I have an issue with number 4. Let me just put it that way.
I do too.
Is that a question, Rod, to me? How do I justify number 4 on the theory that we should limit the variance to the minimum that would reasonably be required.
Yes,
That's
couldn't have said it better. Yes.
Yeah, because I'll take it that that's what what we're doing. And the answer is, I can't tell you that you're wrong. I mean, by the way, if you were, I would tell you to your face. You know me too
Yes.
well. But I can't tell you that you're wrong. And as a matter of fact, I guess I'd have to admit that you're right. That when it comes to variance 4, that's really a request to be able to take a car that might be pulled off. Right now, they pull off cars on the side of the road in front of houses. That's not unusual in Lake Wabeeka. The roads are relatively narrow. So that's when the car is pulled off, it gets pulled into something that keeps it out of the weather. Would the property be reasonably usable without it? The answer is yes. I will tell you that number 4 is more of a convenience and a little bit of an aesthetic issue too, because the property owner would rather look out of the carport with a car under it than a car parked off of the side of the road. But I'm going to have to leave that ultimately to the sound discretion of the commission, you and Mr. Chairman Anna, who's indicated the same question. But you've cited a proper issue, and that is whether this variance, the number 4, is really appropriate. But that's a lot of it is aesthetic and convenience. But the others, I do think, fall into the category of being required to have reasonable use. Fix the porch in the entrance and put a slight overhang on the roof.
Chairman Hanna, would I have an opportunity to speak?
Well, let's see if anybody else from the board have any more questions.
I do have some follow-ups since we mentioned number 4. I did have some concerns and issues with number 4, but I think that board member Moore had already expressed that. Before we move to public comment, I want to bring up to Sean Harity, the enforcement officer, with the variance for that back corner on 1. That was not stated on the application. How do we go about that? Can we continue with this application with that not being stated in the application, or do we have to, or could we continue and then it would just be some sort of amendment at the end? Or Mary, I don't know who would.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to add. I think the intent was that this was a going straight up, this rear addition, and the existing setback was 1.6, which is why it wasn't included in the variance. I'd asked Attorney Marcus to address it, but my understanding of looking at this quick is just that it was a vertical addition, which didn't require any more. But you did mention, Attorney Marcus, that there was an overhang that may be part and parcel here.
Yeah, actually, we're not required, if I can, to seek a variance there because we are, the current house, the foundation is 1.6. The overhang is the same 1.6. What we did is on number 2 we talked about reducing the side yard variance. Yeah, and that's for the carport number 4. That's variance 2 is carport number 4, but that's the only reason we said we're going from 1.6 existing, but 6 required to 2.5. In the rear of the property, it's our opinion that the overhang being no closer to the side yard does not require a variance. And I was a little confusing when I was explaining why there was a 1.6 back there, but the variance is really in the front of the property at 2.5. So I apologize for any confusion. It's our opinion that if you have a foundation that's 1.6 feet away from the side yard and the corner of the overhang is at the same 1.6, stops there, that there's no new variance. It's not required. So I didn't mean to confuse you. We don't need a variance for the overhang itself.
So back to you, Sean, with what Mr. Marcus has said, can that be confirmed that that it's not needed, or is that something that we would then have to maybe stop and table and come back to this before we proceed?
No, I think the surveyor called it out when they said building proposal key, second story addition view with existing single story footprint. That's standard. Juan, that's a standard practice that we have people going straight up. And what the important thing is that overhang can not increase at all. Like Attorney Marcus said, they have to maintain the 1.6. So it'd be one of those things, you snooze, you lose. It's not in it. It can't be added now, but I think they have it under control by going straight up.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
Okay. And then, as Mr. Moore had stated earlier, I am concerned with the proposal number 4 on the site map, and it's something that Mr. Marcus said that with his comments, it's more of a commodity or for the homeowner, I guess. I am okay with, like Mr. Moore said, 1. 2, if they push it back, I think that they could accommodate then those vehicles off the road. And then 3, if it doesn't seem like it's a huge expansion of a porch. Well, I do have my concerns with proposal number 4.
I share your concerns also. Over the years, I've seen people have a hard time just getting one carport, and I guess if there's no opposition, I mean, that's certainly helpful, especially from the association. Usually, they'll band together something like this. But I like what they're doing with this plan. But that's 2 carports, is something to consider.
Anybody else have a question
May I say something?
from the board?
I have something to say
Lori,
as
we'll
well.
let them finish.
Hold on 1 second. Who's want to talk? Lori?
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah.
Concerning the number 4, my understanding is that we really can't go back farther on the right hand, on the where the other carport is. Our septic fields are back there. So I think that starts, that's one reason not to want to push any farther back. And it's also a little dicey backing up, even where the driveway ends now. It's a little bit challenging backing up because you're going uphill a little bit. And the farther back you go on the property, it's going to become that much more challenging to back up, to get back to the road.
Yeah, the
And
whole.
I also mentioned that our neighbors on the left-hand side are okay with it. We went over it with them, and to my understanding, they're not objecting.
Well, the whole area is very
that-
challenging over there, but you're asking for 2 carport, 1 in the front, 1 in the side, and make an addition in a big home. You have a full use of the home now, the way it is. So the 1 in the front, number 4, it seems to be everyone on the board have an issue with it. If that could be incorporated with the 1 on the side, or just make 2 parking instead of the carport, because the carport in front of the house, it doesn't look right. That's my opinion anyway. So anybody else have a question from the board?
I do.
I think it's not a public comment. Sorry, sir.
Oh,
We're
I'm
still
sorry. Never
in
been here
executive.
before.
Yeah.
Apologize.
Yep, no problem. I understand. So if the concern is then a septic field, I think that then I would be willing to continue this or table this to have you come back if that's the case, if that's something that you would like to do, to figure out how much further back could you go. if that's okay with the neighbors to the east of the property. But I agree with Chairman Hanna. I think that it just does not look right with that second carport on the front yard there. If you could add an additional carport that extends over the driveway in addition to that first carport on number 2, that's something that I'm willing to work with. But I me as a chairman, I cannot work with the second carport on the front yard.
Okay, anyone
Yeah.
else? Anyone
ask-
else in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition? Yeah, go ahead. Tell us your name and Cheryl Dressner.
Okay. My name is Dan Lynch. I'm the Vice President of Lake Wabika Association, and I was asked to come tonight to speak on behalf of Lake Wabika. We have opposed the number 4 carport, which it sounds like the rest of you do as well. And these are the reasons. The front setback had previously been reduced from 30 feet to 15 feet 9, and we feel further reducing to 2 feet is unacceptable. Concerns about the elevation change between LWA land and the homeowner's land, where the number 4 carport is a couple foot elevation drop. It means altering LWA property to access carport number 4. There's also a elevation change between said property and the property to the west, that there's a retaining wall in between the 2 properties, which can become compromised when putting the weight of a car on it. It's a very old wall. That was another concern. Our deed declaration allows a single family house and up to a 2-car garage. 2 separate carports do not comply with this after reviewing with our attorney. For that reason as well, we are denying it. And also we're concerned about the increase in impermeable surface, the expansion of the driveways, these 2 structures. Where's all this runoff and drainage going to go with a property set 2 feet away that's significantly lower? Is there a drainage plan with this program? So those are the reasons that we are opposed to it. If anyone has any questions.
You pointed out that the drainage.
Well, if they make a parking on the side of the house, they extended the one to the east side. Do you have a problem with that?
Well, we just have a problem. We have such an incredible problem here at Lake Wabika with the expansion of these homes and these non-conforming lots. They're being shoehorned in. We don't see much being addressed in the way of impermeable surfaces being increased with patios, asphalt driveways, now carports. Where's all this water going? Are you requiring retention systems? We have an incredible amount of runoff coming into the lake from all over the community. So that's a growing concern. As well as the encroachment on the front property lines that we're concerned about. 2 feet is really not acceptable.
I would like to confirm is about either by the homeowner or Mr. Marcus. Is there an actual retaining wall on that east or westerly property line?
There is on the westerly side, there's a stone wall, which is a retaining wall. And we've agreed with the neighbors. It's partially, the exact location of that wall has not been determined. We've agreed with the neighbors to try to locate the wall, and we will repair it because it's currently in need of some repair. That we've agreed to do. So, but that's really, I'm not sure it's part of the application, but if the commission feels based on the comments from the association that it needs to be a condition, that's no problem. It's going to be repaired one way or the other. It's just over the years, it hasn't been well maintained. So we don't intend to remove it. We intend to fix it. And in terms of the actual impervious surfaces, they really aren't changing significantly because we're number 2, the carport that we're seeking. There has been an old carport of sorts there. It's just it's a fallen down structure. It just doesn't work very well. So essentially, we don't have a history of that being permitted to start with. So we're asking to permit it and to allow us to repair it and replace it. The only new impervious surface would be number 4, the carport in the front. And I'm beginning to sense that that's just not going to get a variance. As a matter of fact, Lori is listening to this, and I'm going to recommend to her, if she'll agree, that based on the comments from the commissioners who have spoken, that we withdraw number 4 from this application at this time, because I don't want that to be a focal point to deal with the variances that we actually do need to improve the house. Would that be okay with you?
I agree to withdraw it, and I have a question about what we might be able to do alternatively to still cover the second car.
Yeah, we'll address that afterwards, though, Lori. For the purposes of tonight's hearing, the commission's not going to redesign the project, hopefully. But I think, again, for simplicity for the commission members, at this point, the applicant will withdraw the request for the variance of 2.5 feet and the variance to the front yard and side yard for item number 4, the second carport. So I take the comment from the commissioners. So those are withdrawn. The only, we will again examine whether in the area where carport 2 is, we could come back at a later point and seek a modification, but we can't design it during this hearing, and we can't modify the application. So at this point, we'll just withdraw section 4, which is the variance number 3. We're not going to reduce the front yard setback to 2 feet.
Item number 2.
Yeah.
Uh,
2. Item number 2.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I gotta see who else in opposition here. Anyone else go ahead, let us know what you had in mind.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Dresner, and this is Seth Bressman. We live at 13 Jeffrey Street. We're the westerly home where number 4 has been discussed. There's a lot of issues related to, if we were withdrawing that application for the carport, that's great. But I just want to explain that there's I don't understand the 1.6 figure on the property line in the back. It's a 15-foot required property line on both sides. On the side, my yard, we have it proper. We had it measured, and it's from the backyard, from their house to our house is 21 feet. So 1.6 to the property line, and the rest is our property. So it's so dark, and we have no air or light and no privacy. And now they're building up a second floor. And I was told by the property owner that she has a variance from 1982. As of now, nobody has shown me that variance. So I don't know if one exists. I spoke with Mary earlier today, and we are researching it. So far, we know nothing of one, but we're going to research it some more. So I don't even know where we're getting the rights that was ever built properly, because if there's no variance, they should never have built that. That was built in 1982, that extra kitchen, not 52. There was a fire, and they rebuilt the house. They remodeled the house and added the kitchen and extended it to the side yard. So I want to have that research before we start talking about going straight up, because it's not just going straight up, because in the back, the property is low, and the basements are walkout. So building a second floor is really building a third floor. And once again, It's only 1.5 feet from our property line. It's dark. It's wet all the time. There's no light. It is no air. Don't we have anything to, don't we need to figure that out before we start building? Does anybody have any suggestion or help for me to figure out where to go from here?
Sean, you have any record for that addition she's talking about? The fire?
I'm sure that Mary's looking for it, but at this stage of the game, and we do have an attorney in the audience here, but like I said, there's a certain amount of time that an action needs to be taken when you have a structure that has been there. And I think we're talking about the 80s.
Right.
And when you have a structure that's been in place since the 80s with no action taken, it would take on a non-conforming aspect. So by not having any action on it for all these years, by them coming forward and saying, hey, you're just acknowledging it, that it has been there in the late 80s, which would be my next question to the owners. When was it built? What's the record? Give me somebody with no pecuniary gain that can vouch for the construction of that site. And then it would become something we called pre-existing non-conforming. A pre-existing non-conforming structure that has been established can be intensified, i.e. it can go up. So, but that's the Reader's Digest version of it, and there's a lot more to it. And if you are requesting research from Mary, that's great, but I'm just telling you that's the concept. Okay.
I'm trying to be a good neighbor, and I'm finding out all these things, and nobody asks or says, what do you think of this? We're told this is what we're going to do. We're not asked, how would you feel? Doesn't matter how I feel. It just doesn't matter how I feel. But remember, this house is owned by Beverly Klein, not by Lori. Lori is not the owner of the property. She's the applicant, but she is not the owner. And I'm not even sure where she has authority to even be making any of these applications. Her mom is alive and well in Florida, and she's up here making applications to renovate a house that she doesn't own.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, you want me to address that? That really doesn't have much bearing in the zoning board of appeals hearing. People have certain rights to develop their property, and that's what the zoning board of appeals looks at as far as varying those rules that we all live by for a hardship. And that's what you're listening to now. I apologize.
I went through your rule 11B1 on variances and hardship. And there is no hardship. Her property is not any more unique than any other of the 250 houses at Lake Wabeeka. So unless we each have a unique property at Lake Wabeeka, hers is no different. On our block of 10 houses, there's only one garage and one carport. If that is the standard, not to have any of that. So her property is not unique to the neighborhood. It's not special, and it doesn't take away her rights. It's what it is. It is like I have non-conforming. It's non-conforming. So that's the way it is. Okay. But if we're not going to be having to deal with item number 4 or item number 2, then, we're okay for now. But I'm just concerned that I'm going to have a second story built right next to my house. And I'm just going to have to live with it because even though there was no variance and there was no permission to do it.
Well, thank you for your opinion.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else in opposition? Okay, now
Okay.
Mr. Marcus, you say before you can withdraw number 4.
That's correct.
Now,
Number 4.
I don't know how the board's gonna feel about this whole situation here with this so much complaint, but that seems to be to be retabled, and we have a new plan where your parking gonna be and what setback point. Is that gonna be 2 carport or one carport or no carport, just parking. You know, because two carport on one property is not aesthetically good over there. That's expensive properties on the lake, and you want to keep it in a good shape, right?
Correct.
But anyway, that's my opinion, but maybe we have to retable this for next time to have a new plan or something. I have to see what the board want to do.
Also have to change the coverage if we disallow number 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with with the chairman. I mean, with the withdrawal of number 4, there's you know, well, I don't know if that 1.6 or that corner of the house would have any effect to the retention wall that's there on the westerly side, but that with no confirmation of the integrity of that wall, maybe that's something that Mr. Marcus and the applicant can take a look into to figure out if that would be if there would be any effect to that construction of that addition. I understood that I got some numbers, rough estimates of what the porch is, but if we're changing the coverage and doing all these other changes to the application, I would like to get a confirmation of the actual size of the porch as well, if the board decides to go this route.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm going to ask that you continue the hearing to your next meeting. I'm going to give you the exact dimensions requested on the porch. I'm going to go to the building department to determine when the permit was issued for the fire reconstruction that was requested. And we will reconfigure the coverage without the second carport. Those are all reasonable requests, and they should be able to be accomplished in the next couple of weeks. So since those are issues that have been raised, we might as well address them first so that when you vote, you'll feel comfortable that you've got all the questions answered. I have no problem.
Okay, good. So we're gonna continue that, right? Right, Mary?
Yes, correct.
That's gonna be continued. We're gonna make a motion for continuation or no?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
I do have one question on that continuance. Mr. Marcus, is the 24th okay for you? Should we put that as the date?
Yeah.
Okay.
That
All right, I
would
make a
work.
motion to continue 2203 until the next ZBA meeting on March 24th.
I second.
I'm sorry, who
All in
seconded?
favor? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Mary, Peter DeLucia
Okay,
second.
no, very table.
The opportunity that I get to do research with Mary is certainly a found opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
You got all a tough one for us. When you gonna get the easy one?
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Take care. All right. So we go now to 2204. Any motion to open it?
I make a motion to open application 22-0467 Tagan Point Road for discussion for discussion.
Somebody second, right?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Who is representing the 2204?
Yes, Calvin Blackwell,
Okay.
Summa Designs, representing the owners, Rob and Lisa Pertizé.
Okay. Can you tell us what you're doing?
I'm sorry.
Can you tell us what you're doing there?
What we are trying to do a small addition to increase the existing dining room to make it more functional, but the particular application that we're looking for includes a roof overhang that's going to allow us to create not only a shedding of water that was acknowledged when I'm unfortunately, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, but when the applicants, within negotiations to buy the house, they found that there was increased amount of water that was coming in. We tried to find a way to get the water to shed, but because of where the location was, we could not find, because there was no drains in there, underneath there, that we need to find another way. So we creatively found a way to create this roof overhang, since the back side of this house, which I guess is the, excuse me, which is, okay, which is, yes, the, which I guess is considered the westerly side, is a shear wall. And when the inspection was done, pre-purchase, they found there was water coming in to the foundation, and we couldn't find out any other way at that time to get the water to shed off, because it was all under an existing deck that we couldn't access. So anyways, in the design process of this, we thought that if we could bring a shed roof off, that would bring the water out further, which would allow us to shed the water off further, and also enhance the fact that we have these whole side of the house that had nothing but solar gain and stuff like that, and trying to getting involved in the you know, to be simply honest, trying to be energy conservative. We thought that this was an adequate approach for us.
So the shed, the deck you have in the back of the house, that's the old deck or new deck?
That's an existing deck.
Existing deck, but whoever built that deck maybe don't use the proper flashing to keep the water away from the foundation. You're supposed to reflash it. So, I mean, what is so difficult about reflashing the deck?
Yeah, but you have to understand, we have 2 stories of a sheer wall that's coming down, that not and the fact that the grade is underneath, it's already
Mr.
improperly
Blackwell,
graded.
Mr.
To
Blackwell,
make that with,
we lost you. You chopped up a little bit. We
I'm
lost
sorry.
you for a minute.
I'm sorry.
We got you with the shear wall and then 2 stories, and we chopped. You got chopped up around there.
Okay. So where should I back up to? I mean, the plans speak for themselves, and the directions of the house. We have 2 stories of wall that's going down, that's shearing. The fact that the old existing deck should be trying to shed water away is, is sort of arduous to, I mean, nevertheless, the situation is that we were trying to do something that was going to create not only an aesthetic thing, but more of a beneficial. But keep in mind that the addition that also is going to be part of this application has the overhang, and we're looking to take, and the covering of that roof overhang is going to be continuing past and adding to this roof overhang that we're looking to. So the application is for the roof overhang, but more importantly, it also covers the addition that we're looking to have, which is probably about 4'9", 4'8" by 14 feet, which doesn't extend past anything, nor does it exceed past the existing deck, and either the width or the length of the deck that's currently there.
So the existing deck is behind the 440 line, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any question from the board?
I have a few. Can I get the square footage of the current dining room and then the square footage of the proposed addition?
The proposed addition is 4'9" plus or minus.
Do you have? Never. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I think the addition for a dining room, he don't need, he's okay, but for a roof overhang over the deck one, that's what he
Okay.
needs.
Now, let's see. So, all right. So but the proposed variance is for an addition.
For a roof overhang,
No,
for a roof overhang.
right,
it's
over the deck.
I'm sorry. It's for an overhang. It's not.
Oh, so it's not for an addition.
No.
It is to reduce your rear yard setback from 35 feet to 27.2 feet.
Okay,
For
all right,
proposed
all right.
overhang.
So that would include,
Yeah, the
if
one
we
go
approve
over the deck.
27, it would certainly take care of the 32.4 for the addition
Correct.
as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I guess that's where my confusion was at. Now, I do have an additional question. On the application here, you have 4 feet 9 inches plus or minus by 13 feet 4 inches or 9 inches plus or minus. But on the drawings that you gave on the application, you have listed here. Let me see my notes here. You have listed a width of 10.5, I guess length or of a 4.3. So do you want, is it 4.3, 10.5, or is it the 4.9, 13.9?
You know, thank you for the question. The idea is that we were unable to give a definitive dimension on the exact addition measurement. However, the measurement that we were looking for, I was told, had to be from the furthest point, which happened to be for the roof overhang. When we put that into this equation, that's where we came up with the 27.2 measurement, because that overhang that we're looking to cover the addition will create the roof overhang, and that is why we come up with a 27.2 plus or minus measurement for the variance. I don't know if I answered your question. I apologize if I didn't.
So the 27.2 is using that 4.9 by 13. Point
Right.
four.
Yes,
Or-
exactly. You know,
Okay.
if, you know, I'm sorry. If you look at it, the addition is like a 4.9 by 13.4, but the setback is a corner, it clips the corner of
Yeah.
the addition.
That was
And
on the property. Yeah.
the actual addition is like 32.4. The setback is 35 feet, but the roof overhang, which is why we're applying, is 27.2. It's a little confusing, which it has been from the initial application, so I apologize.
All right. Well, maybe Sean can then clarify if possible, Sean.
Yeah, they have the architectural, there's an architectural addition would be the overhang that comes off of the addition. The addition does require a variance. So regardless, the addition is projecting into the 35-foot setback at 32.4. Even if the existing house was in a setback a little bit, the further increase will require a variance anyway. But I think my understanding of the proposal was that the flow from the addition into the overhang on the deck is a fluid roof that goes over and around. So architecturally, it's conducive to bring the overhang out. So the variance request was for the maximum of 27.2.
Okay. Yep. That answers. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more question? Anybody in support this application? Anyone in opposition? Okay. If no more questions from the board, we like to close 2204.
I make a motion to close 2204.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We're gonna vote, we're gonna open 2204 for vote. Any motion?
I make a motion to open application 22-04 67 Tagan Point Road for a voting session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anybody have the good news or what?
I make a motion to approve 2204 67 Tygon Point Road. RF 20 zone, section 4A3, reduced rear yard setback from 35 feet to 27.2 feet for proposed overhang. It's less than the existing deck, so there's no more excess infringement into the side yard. It's to help weatherproof the house. It doesn't affect the safety of the neighborhood. Per plan submitted.
A second. We have a second.
Second.
Peter second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So move. Okay, 2205 11 Old Stanley Rough Road. We have a motion to open for discussion.
I make a motion to open 22-05 Deadly Rough Road.
Who's, can we have the applicant tell us what they're doing there?
Hi, yeah, how are you? Brandon Michaelek.
Yeah.
We are the new homeowners. We are looking to expand and put a 10 by 14 addition on the back side of the home.
Okay. Can you, you have the plan on the board, or Mary, can you do that for us?
I cannot do that while I'm hosting the meeting.
Or maybe Rodney can do it.
Hopefully
Maybe.
somebody can.
Maybe. There we are.
Okay,
So as you can see, there's a small
You see-
10 by 14 addition, which puts us 8.5 feet from the 440 line.
if you can explain for the board what you have and where your deck, where you're making the addition. I was there, I talked to you today,
Yeah.
but for the rest of the board, we need you to explain what you do.
So as you see where the addition is
Yeah.
already an existing deck, which actually expands well beyond where the addition is going.
Okay,
Which has been there, I don't even know how long, 26, 27 years. So part of the house already actually expands further than where we are even adding on to. So the issue is the 440 line in the back where we're having the 35-foot issue.
but your addition includes second floor, correct?
Correct.
What's going on second floor? Bedroom? Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to expand for additional bedroom space and also for an office space. Since COVID, my wife has had to work from home, so we need a little additional space for that.
So upstairs, you add in a bedroom or you add in an office space?
It's not adding a bedroom, it's just expanding them a little bit and
Okay.
adding an office space.
Okay, very good. All right. Any question from the board?
Yeah, on the site plan, there's 2 440 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which one are we going off about?
I can only,
Well, I guess
can
I'll
only
start
go
my
off
question.
of-
I'll start my question with this. When you submitted the application, which 440 line were you submitting the application?
alls I know, this is the one that says 8.5 feet is the one that we got off the survey. The survey was just done a few weeks ago. So that's the 440 line that he put on there. But I understand that also it shows this other 440 line that's a little further away. So I'm not really sure which one is correct.
I went to the property as well a few days ago, and I did see some stakes out in the back. So those stakes that are staked out, that's for the one closest to the house, is what you're saying?
I believe so, yes.
All right. Okay, so there's some confusion there as to then which one is the accurate.
Yeah, I'm not really
440.
sure on that one.
So, I mean, because now I guess my question then would be to Sean, if the accurate 440 line is the one furthest to the back, which is on the site plan is referred to 5, would be the Rocky River datum. I mean, then are we talking about any issues in regards to then the setback? And is that the one that the city uses as reference? Is that or are we using the one from the FERC, the G mapping? You know, this is confusing as far as where then we delineate the actual setback and then the 440 line itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a licensed land surveyor, but I've been playing around with it long enough to. The surveyor was super conservative here. You can see also he refers to a tie line, which would be like comparing something to a normal property line as close as you can get by the lake. So he actually pulled it to the tie line, which is even more conservative than the 440. So I think the board, by granting the variance for the 8.5, will be rest assured that you're granting the proper variance. Like I said, less is better when you're talking about variances. So they definitely went conservative one. So I would trust this mapping and this setback that was called out.
Okay. think I have. I did see. I guess the other question would be is there is, so is the, when I went to see the property, I saw the house. There's kind of like a little port or like overhang with an entrance. Is that where exactly is the proposed addition going in comparison to where the house is and then the deck is? Because it was a little, I'm looking at the site plan. I see it here, but I'm just trying to picture this in relation to what being on the property.
Yeah, so that little area that where you saw where you can walk through,
Yep.
that is staying as it is. That is not changing. That has nothing to do with the addition.
Alright,
The
so-
addition is actually in that further corner, and it's just squaring off that back section of the house.
Oh, so it's to the northeast or northwest? If I'm looking at the site plan?
I
The
don't,
the deck where the addition going, there is an existing deck over there.
Okay.
yeah,
That's where the
there's
addition
already a
goes.
deck where the
Straight
addition.
line toward the lake.
Oh, so you're adding where we're on the site plan where it says portion of existing deck to remain.
Correct. So where you
Yeah,
see it
that's
dotted,
He making the addition 2 floors. To
right,
the
so where you see it dotted, that's a deck already,
Okay.
and that is where the addition is going.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because that was my other question. Is it where that portion of the deck is? That. Yeah. Okay. So that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so that little area that you're talking about is just remaining exactly as it is.
So it's on that portion of the deck when that dotted portion there that's shaded that's the deck, but you're just you're adding to it. Okay. All right,
Correct,
makes sense. All right, thank you.
correct.
Thank you.
Any more question from the board? Anybody in favor of this application? Anybody in opposition for this application? I guess look like it's easy one. So we have a motion to close 2205.
I make a motion to close 2205, 11 Old
Second.
Stanley Brook Road.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we open it back again for vote.
I make a motion to open 2205 for voting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's have the headline and news now.
I make a motion to approve 22-05, 11 Old Stanley Rough Road. Mike Lack, Brandon and Vicky, J03124, RA20 zone, section A, 4A3. Reduce rear yard setback from 35 feet to 8.5 feet for an addition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excuse me, per
So moved.
plan submitted. Per
Excuse
plan,
me.
per plan.
Plan submitted.
Plan submit.
Thank-
Good. Okay. Approved. 2206.
Thank
33
you.
Crosby Street.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
I make a motion to open 2206, 33 Crosby Street, 33 Crosby LLC
Second.
for hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone represent the applicant?
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Steve Sullivan. I'm a professional engineer with CCA LLC from Brookfield, Connecticut. I'm joined by the applicant, Dan Bertram, 33 Crosby LLC, and Joe Balskis, traffic engineer from VHB. If you would like, if I could share my screen, I can pull up our
Yeah, sure,
Our
that would
site
be
plan.
perfect. That would be great.
While we're doing that, I'll say good evening.
Good
Okay.
evening.
You say you're gonna share the screen?
Yes, I will pull it up. Yep.
Oh,
Just give me a second.
Trying to build up the excitement.
Mm.
boy.
Okay. Hopefully it's showing up on your end at this point.
Um,
Well, I see nothing in the
a
screen,
lot
just
of, a lot of black.
everybody. Yeah, that's better now.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so this is 33 Crosby Street, located at the corner of Crosby Street and Lee Hartel Drive. It's 0.44 acres. It's in the C-CBD zone. There's an existing mixed-use building on the property. The top floor has 2 apartments. The bottom level, or the main level, has commercial retail. There's 2 restaurants. And the other space that is vacant now was a dance studio at one point. The vacant space, which is the subject of our application tonight, is located where my cursor is, kind of on the Lee Hartel or Crosby Street side. They're trying to get a small Indian food market establishment in that space. Proposed Indian food market falls under a grocery store use. And we're looking for a variance to the parking requirement for a supermarket store. In the zoning regulations, under the parking regulations, the supermarket is the only type of calculation we can use for this type of tenant. In particular, we're looking for a variance to 8.C.1.B2 and 8.C.4.C10. So the variance we're looking for is the current parking requirement for a supermarket store is 1 space per 250 square feet of gross usable floor area. We're looking for a variance to change that to 1 space per 500 square feet of usable gross floor area. In our application, we provide a narrative of the hardship. I'll read that narrative, and after that, I could kick it off to Joe Balskis to talk about the parking analysis they had done. So the Indian food market parking requirements fall under general retail supermarkets. Indian food market is a specialty food market use and requires much less parking. We had attached a traffic and parking review study prepared by VHB, demonstrating that 1 space per 500 square feet of usable gross floor area is a more appropriate requirement for this type of tenant. The study was based on actual parking for 2 other similar sized sites and uses in Danbury. In addition, there are also 8 on-street parking spaces along Crosby Street and Lee Hartel that in reality people could use for this property. But we don't count that towards the parking calculation since it's off-site. Before I have Joe Balskis elaborate on the parking analysis they performed, employees under a previous variance, actually many years ago, employees would be parking at the Patriot Garage, not on site here. That variance was at least 12 years ago. But I just wanted to point that out. There was a variance for employee parking to park at the Patriot Garage. So again, we're looking for a variance to the parking requirements for supermarket use from 1 space per 250 to 1 space per 500. So also on our plan, we performed parking calculations. So for this particular use in space, the usable gross floor area would be 3,315 square feet. Under the current requirement in parking calculation, that space would need 13, tenant would need 13 spaces. With our proposed variance, we're looking at a need of 7 spaces. So when you add up all the parking requirements for the other uses and in this use under a variance scenario, the site wouldn't meet the total parking required, which in this case is 23 spaces. If Joe's on the line, is he still there?
Yeah, Steve, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. So Joe, if you could just elaborate on the parking analysis for the 2 other sites that you studied.
Yeah, all right. So for the record, Joe Balskis, licensed professional engineer, state of Connecticut. We have prepared that January 20th memo, which outlined the traffic as well as the parking. And as Steve identified, using the city's regulation for parking, it's based upon a much larger grocery store. And these stores are very unique. They're very low generators of traffic and of parking. So we looked at it, we said, well, what can we do? And we decided that we do a parking survey of similar stores. So we found Zaytuna as the existing one on Main Street, and then up the road, the Indian Food and Spice. We were out there several occasions. We observed the parking demand at those locations. And as we identified in the memo, there isn't a lot of demand, nowhere near as what you'd see for the city's zone requirement. So the memo outlines that the parking demand that we found at these 2 sites allows us to request the variance because we don't need the parking based upon similar and existing, type of grocery stores, very specialized grocery stores, not a large big box grocery store. So the memo kind of outlines that, and that allows us to draw the conclusion that there's the parking that's on this site justifies the variance for reduced parking because our other surveys that we've done and that indicates that the parking demand isn't there that you'd see for the city's own requirement. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I can go through the memo if you wanted to. You all have that. But whenever we have something specialized like this as engineers, we like to look and see where's there something similar. Can we go do a traffic count? Can we do a parking count? And that's exactly what we did. We basically looked at other locations, observed them, counted the traffic, and that's what table 4 in a memo provides you for summary. So based upon that, we came to the conclusion that there's no need to require the full zone and parking requirement here. And that's why I'm requesting the variance.
So I think with that concludes our presentation, and we could open up for discussion and questions.
Just 2 questions I have. Do you intend to have any buffet or any sit-down tables or stools?
No, that's correct. No sit-down tables or stools or buffet.
Okay, you fall under market.
Anybody else have a question from the board?
Yeah, I just have a few questions in regards to the traffic report. I was reading the traffic report. I know that you guys had some readings during morning peak hours and evening peak hours, but it looked like that was just through like Monday through Friday. Are there any numbers for let's say the weekend, maybe a Friday through Sunday or a Saturday through Sunday that would give us some more intel as to what traffic would be at these other locations that were the studies were done and conducted at?
No, for the grocery stores, we look at Monday through Friday. It's not a shopping center retail use that we do a Saturday midday parking count. So we did not look at that, and we don't usually do that for supermarkets. We do for grocery stores. So we confided it to the weekday morning, weekday afternoon.
And
just let me say that was also in consultation with the city traffic engineer.
So then I would guess it would be safe to say that there isn't. My other question would have been is there's the News Times apartments going up there, so there wouldn't be any projections or numbers in regards to what that building would bring as far as traffic went, or
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. This study is actually based upon that. We did the traffic study for the News Times building, 333, and those numbers are included in here.
Okay, all right. So that's based then with the inclusion of the News Times building coming online in the near
Correct.
future. Okay.
Yes.
They're gonna be all strictly groceries, or is gonna be any cooking over there?
Just groceries, no cooking. Dan,
Okay.
if you want to, Dan Bertram, if you want to elaborate on that. you can.
They may be prepping food that they then are selling, but they're not selling it for anyone to come in and sit and eat at that location. So I do believe they have a food prep area in the back that, you know, that type of function. Yes.
Okay. Any more questions from the board?
I guess before we close, then, with that being said, before we close the discussion portion of would it then be comfortable? And this is then my opinion. I would feel a little bit more safer with this going forward with this application. Would it be then safe to say if I would add an amendment where this would be, and maybe Sean can help me out with what I'm trying to get at, is that the parking, if let's say this property, this business either goes out of business or decides to relocate somewhere else, that this piece of property or parcel come back to the ZBA at any time that another business would come in, just for the simple fact that I wouldn't want someone else coming in and setting up shop where they could cook food and have sit down, or bring a bigger, let's say, business or corporation to take over where it would demand more parking. If that's okay with the applicant, and I would like to consult that with Sean Harity. As far
I
as
think maybe that would fall under a change of use, if that were to happen, if the business were to leave and somebody were to come back in. Sean could probably better answer that.
No, I mean, like I said, the use would be separate from what they're asking for. They're asking for release from the parking regulations. So I think Juan's concern is real, where you don't want to turn around, all of a sudden we get a different kind of use out there that's coming in under a supermarket clause. And it would be up to Mr. Bertram whether to set the conditions that Juan would want to put on a stipulation, saying that if something comes out here that is deemed more intense, he could even tie it for, you know, in view of the city, would be more intense or different than what was proposed, that Mr. Bertram would agree to go back to the ZBA. That would be something that would have to be agreed to by the applicant.
I'm certainly very flexible. In terms of the prior use, I think the dance studio was a much more intensive not traffic, but parking generator. But the regs allowed it, right? And so we were just kind of highlighting this mismatch to this use. So I certainly have no issue with if the board is inclined to allow this use, that we, you know, have it tied to that in some way. We're not trying to get away with anything or change anything here. We're just trying to have some business that's already working downtown be able to stay downtown. And that's our motivation. And I think to allay some fear on the weekend side of things, we have a very good relationship with Omaha Beef. And that's actually one of the things that made the dance studio work, is after their employees left on the far side of Papa John's, they always allowed people to park there. So I think that would address any weekend-ish concerns, right, that anybody might have. I mean, we kind of kicked off something with them when we did the murals along the Crosby Street side of their building years ago. But I have no issue with accommodating what you're talking about, or so you tell me what form that looks.
I think I'm with Juan on this question, and my thought was similar in that, okay, it's not a supermarket. We've established that it's an Indian market, has a bit smaller demographic than a general supermarket would. But what if a convenience store were to go in there someday, which would have a much more general appeal to the population, therefore generating more traffic and more need for parking? Have we boxed ourselves into a corner? Can we just specifically say this variance is for an Indian market or ethnic food market of some sort? But yeah, I'm kind of thinking along the same lines there with you, Juan.
Sure. We
The
certainly
other-
have no issue. We're here tonight for helping this business stay in the downtown. That's our motivation.
The other questions I had too, one is, I'm assuming the food market would require two dumpsters, one for cardboard and boxes and so forth, and one for regular trash. Where would these dumpsters go on this property?
We actually have been keeping that because there are two restaurants already at the location. And so I don't know if you can make it out on the plan of the building there. There's a hallway, I think, that they kind of keep things inside of. There might be a dumpster also on the Omaha beef side, but from the standpoint of anything visible, we certainly won't be out on Crosby or in front of the building along Lee Hartel with it. But I think whether or not they, tenants share or, something along those lines, we can accommodate having no new dumpsters on this site that aren't there today. That is good for the commission.
23 existing spaces, right? Is that what's there now? If I understand correctly.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how much Papa John's generates, probably not a whole lot, but I do know the restaurant next door there, especially on weekends, can generate quite a bit of parking demand. And I'm not sure. It may be a bit intense when you add into that. I don't even know what the regulations are, Sean. I don't know offhand what their requirement is for having a number of parking spaces. But you're saying in total, the required parking for all tenants, including the residents, is what's the required again? I forget what Mr. Sullivan said.
For that restaurant would require 10 spaces for the, it's based on number of seats. And then there's 3 employees. So 13 spaces would be required for that particular use. But remember, the 3 employees are parking at Patriot Garage offsite. So the requirement for on-site is 23 because the employees are parking at Patriot Garage, and that's what's on site is 23 parking spaces.
Right. Yeah, I know. And then the two, there's 2 apartments upstairs. Is that what it
is? They're 1.5 spaces for 1 bedroom units. So they need 3 spaces.
All right. And then the third tenant on the ground floor, Papa John's, they have, based on their square footage or tables or
seats. Yep. Seats. 12 seats. So 3 spaces and then 3 spaces for the employees. And that's, again, offsite. And the grocery food market would be 7 spaces at the 1 per 250 or 1 per 500.
Yeah. All right. I'm a little leery. Not totally convinced, but anyway, we want to keep downtown business. But we're not zoning, as you know, zoning variances aren't about economics. So
I don't think it's going to have a high impact on parking and any kind of congestion. I think, it's going to continue to revitalize downtown.
I think I'm comfortable with it as long as we can get that amendment put in, or if it's amendment or some sort of clause that it just strictly stays for this
stipulation.
Special stipulation. I think I would be more comfortable with that than just a full grant of the variance.
Okay.
Before you close, Mr. Chairman, so would Mr. Bertram, as far as what conditions that he would not have a problem with, would it be more like any specialty market would be permitted to continue based on this variance, but any other change of use that would require any further change of use in this thing would require another variance? Is that something you'd agree with, Dan?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Is that okay with you, Juan?
That's perfect with me.
Okay, great. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any further questions? Any more questions from the board? Anybody in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition? Okay. Can we close 2206?
I make a motion to close. Go ahead, Juan.
All right. I make a motion to close 22-06 33 Crosby Street. Crosby
Second.
LLC. Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can we open again for voting?
I make a motion that we go, we open application 22-06 33 Crosby Street for voting session.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, something going on with my computer here. Okay, let's have the main opinion now. What do you guys have in mind?
I'm comfortable enough. If you guys are ready, I'm willing to make a motion.
Yeah, go for it, Juan.
Okay,
All right. I make a motion that we approve application 22-06 33 Crosby Street, 33 Crosby LLC, CBD zone section 8 to change grant variance section 8.C.1.B number 2 and 8.C.4.C number 10, reduce parking requirement of retail from 1 space per 250 square feet of usable gross floor area to 1 space per 500 square feet of usable gross floor area. Proposed use small Indian food market, with the stipulation that this variance will be granted on the condition that it would be only for a specialty market. Any other use variance would have to come back upon the ZBA board for approval. And I guess I could do as per plan submitted, Sean, because we're just adding the stipulation.
Yes, you can.
Okay, as per plan submitted.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
Okay,
you.
approved.
Thank
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I don't know, I lost my screen here. I don't know what's going on.
We need to approve the minutes.
Yes, we need
Yeah.
to approve the minutes.
We need to approve the minutes. But a second, let me see what I can do here. Something going wrong.
We can see you.
Yeah,
see you
I
and
don't know
you.
what's going on. Something, maybe I have a virus or something. I don't know.
Mr. Hannah, I could read that for you and then let somebody make the
Yeah,
motion.
I can, okay, go ahead.
Okay, we need a motion to accept the minutes of February 24th. Everyone who is present tonight can accept, so we just need the motion.
Okay,
Make a
Make a
motion.
motion to accept the minutes of February 24th, 2022 as submitted.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all approved.
Do you want me to go to the end, Mr. Hannah? Do
Yes.
you want? Okay. Or Juan, as vice chair, you could do it, just read the rest, continued hearings. Or do you-
Yeah,
What do you want?
just give me, if you give me a sec, I'll pull it up, but I gotta get back to my email here.
I can do it. Do it for
Okay.
you.
All right.
There are no continued public hearings, old business, none, new business, none, correspondence, none, other matters, none, and now a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Or Mr. Hannah, if you like?
I don't know what's going on here. I can't see anything.
No,
Make a
Anyway.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Joe,
there you
get rid
go.
of your virus there. Get
I
well.
don't know, there's something wrong.
Yeah, you put me on the spot there, Joe, with that temporary chairman there.
I don't know, that-
I know, it's tough, a lot of pressure, Juan, a lot of pressure.
I
I
can't-
can see that.
I know what I can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night. Take
Right.
care.